January 24th was officially, I'm declaring it the day of the freshmen. The freshmen were absolutely unbelievable today. Throughout the sport, we saw multiple teams pick up crucial season-defining wins that will change what we think of them throughout the rest of the season. And then the SEC became even more of a just mess, chaos, all of that stuff. So there's a ton of games to talk about that happened today, but today being the day of freshmen, I'm going to spend some time on them because those guys were spectacular. But I'll start out with the most recent two games as I'm filming tonight. Tennessee and Alabama, the second debut of Charles Bediako. If you haven't heard my thoughts on that whole situation, go look at the last video. I think it's dumb. That is my blanket statement. I think it is stupid. But he comes out in an Alabama team that doesn't have Amari Allen or Aiden Holloway, and the entire year has kind of lacked consistency from their bigs. They've had some good games, and then most games they've kind of been absent. There's been some injury, all this different stuff. So Bediako does bring a anchor, something very, very helpful to this team. And he goes out there and plays pretty well. Nate Oates, not shy to play the man at all. Plays 25 minutes off of the bench, scores 13 points in this time, and he checks right in and impacts it immediately. He has 2 blocks, one of which led to a big-time break. And he was very, very impactful early. This is not a James Najee situation. I talked about that in the video that I had posted, referring to what this whole situation was to me. This dude is an absolute player. He was a dude when he was at Alabama a couple years ago. He comes out in this one, and he gets a standing ovation, all this different stuff from the Crimson Tide faithful, and they end up giving him, all the support that he needed, because whoever was calling the game, no, I think Jimmy Dykes was on the Florida game. I don't remember who was calling this game, but they mentioned they had talked to Bediako the day before, and there was some nervousness and some chills and stuff, and he was just excited to go play basketball. So I'm sure that helped him calm his nerves and everything. And yeah, for him, he comes out and plays pretty well right away. Made some big time impacts. Taylor Ball-Bowen being out there, I feel like they kind of played well together. There was some big stuff that I thought kind of worked pretty well. But the Tennessee Volunteers are the story of this game. So obviously no Aiden Holloway, no Amari Allen, who are two of the most important pieces on this team. So take that into account when you're talking about this Alabama loss here, which probably, I don't know if it'll get vacated now that it's a loss. But I thought initially, I was like, he's going to play that game. There's this restraining order, all this stuff. And then the NCAA is going to come back and be like, nope, that game didn't happen. You played 30 regular season games. That one doesn't count. So I don't think they're going to have to do that now that Tennessee won this game. But Tennessee, their chemistry on the offensive end is what is standing out to me big time. They played big to big a couple times there late. Nate Ament was special, 29 points. I felt like he was more comfortable getting to where he got to than in some games as of recently. Jacoby Gillespie had a early season Jacoby Gillespie game where he had 24 points. If he's hitting like that, it's dangerous. And now I had kind of taken it to account when I was like, man, they didn't play during the week. Their last game was Kentucky last Saturday. They didn't play for a week. They had a stretch where they played Illinois. They had a few losses, whatever. They had a Houston win sprinkled in there in the non-con. But they had played Illinois. And then I think they had either a week or a week and a half where they were off. They came out and played Louisville and dominated Louisville. And it was really a second half thing, and Jalen Carey and all that. But nonetheless, this team off of a bye might be scary. And I think it's more because they've had some guys get injured and stuff. They're not super deep. They are physical. They wear themselves down while wearing you down. They're a team that is gonna, and it's weird because I talked about the offensive chemistry. That stands out to me because this is a group that is barely ever played together. Jacoby Gillespie comes from Maryland. Nate Ament's a high schooler. Some of these guys are taking bigger steps up that have been in the program. Jalen Carey comes from Vanderbilt. All these guys are new to each other. So the chemistry is a very important part, but the way that they play, it's always been the same under Rick Barnes, and they're very physical. So maybe this team off of a bye is something you don't want to see. Now, they trailed early. They were a 5.5-point dog in this one, even though Alabama was lacking a couple of starters. Alabama was still the favorite, and Tennessee comes out on top 79-73. And shout out to the social media team for the Volunteers, because they had a funny post where I think they had said, who is the 76ers G League affiliate? Yes, okay, so it was the 76ers. They had said, Delaware Blue Coats, you're next, referring to Obviously, Bediako being a G Leaguer and all that different stuff. So, great troll there. Absolutely love to see it. Love to see the social media teams have a little fun with it. The other game I want to refer to is Kansas at Kansas State in the, Octagon of Doom. Awesome environment, we'll put it that way. This was a really good game for a lot of it. And then Kansas just had their way there at the end. No Darren Peterson in this one, but Melvin Council and Bryson Tiller were the ones early that showed up. Flory Benuga ends up figuring it out. He had a nasty poster in this one. Trey White figures it out towards the end. Marco Jackson had 19, was hitting all of the open threes. It felt like he was getting, he only ended up with 2. It felt like 30 because it was always like wide open. They were able to slow PJ Haggerty down early in the first half. I think he had like 3 or 4 at half. Ends with 23. So holding a guy that is that prolific of a scorer to that low of a margin in the first half is very, very impressive. But the guy that kept him in it early for Kansas State was Andre Kostic. I can't remember how they pronounced it on the broadcast, but he had, I believe, 9 threes on the year before and then had 4 in the first half. He was 4 for 5 in the first half from 3. So he was part of the thing that fueled a close first half, 37-35 lead for Kansas going into the break. But without Darren Peterson, these other guys stepped up, and that's all that you can ask for them. They finished on a 27-7 run to end the game, and this is certainly not the first time that these guys have really stepped up big time in the absence of Darren Peterson, because they are now 8-2 without DP over there. So they just continue to win. That's all that you can ask of them. And Bill Self, credit to him, getting back out there on the sideline. That was awesome to see. And prayers for him to have continued health, because it's one of the legends that we have very few of left. Kentucky, 11 a.m. tip. This was the start of the day, hosting Ole Miss so that Ole Miss could get back at a decent time through all this mess, all this snow and everything. They moved it up to 11 a.m. and you could feel it. It was a slow start both teams. Very, very gross first half, 29-23 at half. And it wasn't that just like it was great defense. It was just like people were missing everything, whether it was around the rim, at 3, whatever it may be. But a big-time second half from Otega Owe helped fuel the win. So he had 20 points in the second half. A.J. Storr was awesome for Ole Miss. And then same exact numbers and everything. 16 points for Malik Dia. He had 16 on Kentucky last year. He just has their number. But Travis Perry, the homecoming for him, did not go as planned, to say the least. He had 0 points. 0 for 3 from the field. Not a great game for the young man from Eddyville. Slow start, like I mentioned. The only guy that really kind of popped off for Kentucky in the first half was Jasper Johnson. He had his own 8-0 stretch. He finished with 11 in this one. That kid, I feel like, is the difference to this Kentucky team being a team that could like take a next step and maybe help win a couple of games in the tournament. Similar to what Colin Chandler had done in the tournament last year, where there was somebody ahead of him where it was more of a Kobe Brea thing. Colin Chandler came into the game and made some crucial plays, made some crucial shots there towards the end of the season. I feel like the more comfortable and everything that Jasper gets with this team and with his role, now that it's kind of set in stone because of all these injuries and everything, I feel like he could end up stepping up and being that type of guy. So Jasper was a big highlight right there in the first half. Like I mentioned, his own 8-0 run kind of fueled the Cats to a decent, 6-point first half lead. If you know what the Cats have gone through this year, that's a decent lead for sure. But a win nonetheless, 72-63, and they get out of there with a win. I don't know if I mentioned the Kansas score. They won 86-62. And that one also had Trey White at the end of the game. He dunked one late, even though Bill Self, you could hear him on the broadcast like screaming, no, no, no. And then you look over and you got Melvin Council at half court just goofing off. And then in the locker room, he took like the belt out. That dude Melvin Council, he's only coming over from St. Bonaventure. He's only been at Kansas for not even a full season. Awesome. He's just awesome. He absolutely loves the Jayhawks with everything in him. And he honestly, I mentioned that he played a good first half. He played an incredible entire game. He had 17 points, 7 rebounds, 12 assists. I thought he was spectacular for the Jayhawks in that one. Moving on, I'll talk about Virginia and North Carolina, one of the early games of the day. The one big takeaway early was Virginia just knows how to not turn the ball over with their guards. That was a kind of kind of big key thing for me right there early on in this game on how they built their lead. But UNC fought back, coming back from down 16 in this game, led by Jaron Stevenson and a few others. They were able to, I mean, it honestly felt like the fastest comeback from 16 points ever, because it was like they were down 11 and a half, and then they trailed, or down 9 and a half, and then they trailed coming out or something, and then it just like flipped immediately. It was wild. It felt like it was a blink of an eye, and they had come back. But credit to Virginia. I mean, building the lead was one thing in itself. DeRitter was really good, and it was a really team effort outside of them. Credit to Chance Mallory coming off the bench there late. He did so many little things. He was getting on people's nerves defensively. He was doing little things on offense and stuff. So he was awesome, I thought. Everybody on Virginia, this is a game that, like, this tells you exactly what they want to do. The only thing, I think with North Carolina's length and what they have, even though Henry Visar did have a great game, they were able to limit them on, like, their rim protection. They love to get, block shots, whatever, to turn it into transition buckets, to get something on the other end. And they weren't able to really get into the flow of things because North Carolina just was very, very smart about what they did offensively. I mentioned Henry Visar not having a great game. Definitely his worst game of the year, unless I'm forgetting one. 7 points. He had 4 fouls. He was in foul trouble. Like, it felt like as soon as the game tipped off. But guys stepped up in his absence. Caleb Wilson, as always, 20 points, 4 rebounds. Seth Trimble, 16 points. Derek Dixon, he's starting now. 11 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds. This is the guard that North Carolina has been missing all year. Jaron Stevenson, 17 off the bench. Awesome game from him. Best game for him with the Tar Heels. And then Luka Bogovac has 14 points. That was awesome. So having those two off the bench right there, putting up those numbers is incredible. So having 31 off of the bench with those guys, you're going to be in a great spot. But Derek Dixon, he was kind of, other than Jaron Stevenson being like the guy that just kind of took over everything in the second half, defensively, offensively, all of this stuff, Derek Dixon was a story because of what he was able to do guard play-wise. Like Seth Trimble, he is an incredible basketball player, but he can't do it by himself. 11 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds, with only 1 turnover as well. So the assist-to-turnover ratio, if you've listened to me for a while, that's one of the things that I get very, very excited about. But with Luka, if he's able to come in and hit a couple threes, now you don't even need 14 out of him. If he can just hit like 1 or 2, and then Derek Dixon can mirror this a little bit and just like make these type of games happen, North Carolina is going to be a very, very scary team. And they're going to be a team that I did not see coming in the preseason. I didn't think they'd be very good. They've been very good because of their front court duo this entire year. But if you have a guy like Visar that doesn't have a good game, you need these other guys to step up, and that's what they did in this one. So big time road win, 85-80, and getting a good bounce back week. Because last week they lost to Stanford and Cal. This week they beat Notre Dame. And now at Virginia, first road win in ACC play. They had that SMU loss, Stanford and Cal, all 3 of those losses on the road. You'll get your first ACC road win, and it's against one of the best teams in the entire country, and definitely the best team out of the 4 that you've played so far. So good stuff for Hubert Davis, and kind of having your back against the wall. Hostile environment, good crowd there, and they end up getting a much-needed victory, I would say, to say the least. Nebraska, they just keep winning. They played this one without Braden Frager, and Price Stanford steps up. All these other guys step up. And believe it or not, this game was really good for a small part of it because of the comeback. They trailed, let me get the exact number. They trailed 40-22 with 17:32 left in the second. Finished the game on a 44-17 run. 76-57. Nebraska dominates Minnesota. That game was unbelievable. It literally just flipped on its head. I've never seen anything like. I said North Carolina had the craziest, fastest comeback of all time. Like, this one was also one of those 46-21 in the second half. I mentioned Price Stanford being one of the best transfers in the entire country. Game after game, he had 4 blocks, 22 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. The dude is everywhere, doing everything that you need. He's just been awesome. Everybody on the team, everybody just shows up and plays well. And now they're sitting at 20-0, 9-0 in the Big Ten. Now, They'll have some stretches coming up where it's not going to be easy. We'll just put it that way, because their next game happens to be at number 3 Michigan. So it's not going to be easy. And then they'll follow that one with a home game versus Illinois, which obviously they had already left. They had already had gone and won at Illinois. Now they're going to have to host them, and it looks like the Illini are in a better form at this point, to say the least. So Nebraska ball keeps winning. I don't know where I would even think that they would end up in the tournament right now, but if you're betting against them, you're just wrong, because they just continue to win. They just do all that they need to do to win, and like I mentioned, they're out without Braden Frager, one of their most important pieces to this team. So great win on the road. If you can win in Big Ten play on the road, always going to take that. So big time win for Nebraska. The game of the day, Houston at Texas Tech. If these two teams could just play every day for the rest of my life, I'd be a very, very happy camper, because these two just deliver cinematic classics. 90-86 victory for Texas Tech in this one. Texas Tech early was living on the glass, and that's how it ended up being. 18-11 at half in the rebounding battle. In all game, they ended up doing it. Toughest team wins. That's the shirt that everybody in the arena was wearing. They ended up winning the rebound battle 44-28, and Kelvin Sampson says after the game that I'm not going to complain about these refs because they kicked our ASS on the glass, and that's what the whole outcome ended up being based on, in my opinion, was they just continued to grab the boards. Tech had 10 made threes at half, and that's what built their 55-49 lead going into half. They ended up hitting 12, so they kind of came back to reality, but had to figure out ways to get buckets in different ways. Kingston Flemings. I've talked about this game long enough without mentioning this, man. 42 points. You heard that right. 42 points out of this young man. 4 for 9 from 3, 8 for 10 from the line, 15 for 26 overall. This kid is unbelievable. A guy that was around the 20th ranked recruit was not getting that preseason buzz like these other guys were. This dude is going to be amazing. And I've been wondering, where does this guy end up getting drafted? That's been my wonder for a while now. And I'm curious about it. So I looked it up during the game. Where does it have this man going? Bleacher Report had released a mock draft where it obviously, you just start the mock draft by saying, all right, AJ, Darren, Boozer, whatever it may be. But the mock draft had him going 5 to the Nets. So I think he's top 5. And that's not even remotely close to a hot take by any means. That's quite the cold take. He is just special. He is just absolutely special. He gets it in every single way possible. He's 6'4", but he plays like he's 6'8". He's strong. The change of speed, change of direction is unbelievable for a kid of his caliber. They get Chris Sunak, and you're kind of looking man, Kelvin Simpson's getting some recruits now. Kingston Flemings, little did we know, this 4-star coming in that we think is kind of going to be off ball because Milos Uzan's running the show. No, this kid's just special. But sad part for Houston, he brought it. Emmanuel Sharp brought it. Nobody else seemed to bring their game. Nobody else on the team had more than 6 points. It's not going to cut it. But for Houston, they had won 16 straight road games coming into this one. Not just away from home, whatever. They lost that Tennessee game in Vegas. They've had some neutral losses, but they're pretty good overall, even in the neutral ones. But on the road, they had won 16 straight. Hadn't lost a Big Ten game since Texas Tech last year, February 1st, 2025, and now it's January 24th, and they drop another one to Texas Tech. Second loss of the year for Houston. They had the Tennessee loss, like I mentioned. But this one, there's absolutely nothing to hang your head over. I don't need to be the one to say that. They're gonna get back to it. They're gonna go put in the work on the glass. They're gonna probably take a shirt that says "Stuff His Team Wins" and throw that up on the wall and make the dudes stare at it for a while. But what a win for Texas Tech. They just keep winning and winning and winning. They're all the way back. I think that's safe to say. After the Arkansas loss, everybody, me included, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, dude, are we sure?" Then they had the miraculous win against Duke, where I think some questions kind of started to go away. After that Arkansas loss, everybody was like, dude, this isn't a national championship team. Are we sure they're actually pretty good? Like, this is not what we expected going into the year. And I remember it vividly in the Arkansas game, watching that one, and I was like, dude, they just don't have enough outside of their duo. Now, outside of their duo, they're getting 18 points from Jalen Petty. They're getting 18 points from Donovan Atwell. They're getting 6 off the bench from Mosley. Lawan Watts is going to figure out ways to have good games. He only had 3 today, but he's going to figure it out. Like, they're getting plenty now. It just took some time. But after that Arkansas loss, everybody was a little worried. Miraculous Duke win, like I mentioned. Since then, they've been rolling. They have now beaten BYU and Houston in back-to-back Saturdays in Big 12 play, sitting at 6-1. They are absolutely special. They are back in that mix of national title contenders, in my opinion. That this game kind of solidified it for me. And as for Houston, they are clearly, comfortably in the national title contention. Like, they being able to go there into Lubbock and do this in that environment and everything, and nearly come out with a victory. That's the good stuff right there. That is good stuff. There's nothing to be worried about with Houston. They're going to be perfectly fine. I think Senak's going to get better as the year goes on, and JoJo Tugler's not going to have this bad a game again. I don't believe so. Houston, man, they're going to be right there in the mix, but Texas Tech, welcome. I was a little hesitant, but welcome to the top because they are one of those teams. Texas absolutely throttles Georgia, number 21 Georgia, 87-67. And Dalen Swain just continues to do his thing. He was spectacular at Kentucky throughout the week. He has 26 in this one with 6 boards, 5 steals, just doing his thing. And he's efficient with it. It's not like he's taking terrible shots. And this one was different than some games. He's not getting to the line as much. He shot 1 free throw. And overall, it's a team that didn't get to the line as much as like they usually like to with 12. But they go 9 for 12. That's just enough to be able to throttle them. Georgia was up 7 at half, and everything just kind of flipped on its head at that point. Kendall Weaver had the best time out of the year. I just want to highlight that because it was just goofy. He's like flying out of bounds and calling it while it's in the air. They give it to him. That was awesome. Jake Wilkins, Dominique Wilkins' son, donning the number 21 jersey that they brought out of retirement. He had an awesome dunk with a hard fall, all this different stuff. Awesome highlight play. That was really cool to see, and that was about where things switched and everything went in Texas's favor at that point. So Texas sits at 3-4 in the SEC, 12-8 overall. If you look at just their record, you're kind of like, all right, I don't know about this, but they're a good team. They're going to win some games. They haven't had the easiest start in the schedule in conference play, but they're going to figure it out, especially with Dalen Swain playing the way that he is as of right now. He's been absolutely awesome for them. So, big-time win. They have now beaten Alabama, which continues to look worse and worse, even with adding a former pro. But, Tremont Mark had 23. Vokatitis had 14-8 and 2 blocks. Jordan Pope had 14. I feel like he's kind of the X factor for me. If he's able to come out and just do something, just a little bit points-wise, they're going to be in a good spot. Because, 87, it feels like 80 is their minimum. They get to 80 every game, it feels like. And this one, they obviously got over that mark because of Jordan Pope and many other guys being able to step up. Villanova at UConn. This game was awesome. Also in the midst of just all the chaos. Overtime win for the Huskies, 75-67. Alex Caravan couldn't make anything in the first half, and when he was needed most, he absolutely stepped up. He was awesome. He finished with 17 points, 8 rebounds. Mr. UConn, whatever you want to call him, he basically said late in this game, I'm not going to let us lose this game. We are going to win this game. And that's what they did. Now they're 19-1. And Villanova, they gave them all that they could handle. Like I mentioned, went to overtime. Great basketball game. Braylon Mullins got hurt, going to get tested for concussion. He took a weird elbow or whatever it might have been. I don't know. I don't remember the full situation, but he got elbowed, had to leave the game, all this different stuff. So they basically played without Braylon Mullins for a good chunk of it, and they're able to win. The foul trouble early for Villanova, it hit bad. Duke Brennan got in foul trouble, and it kind of switched it to where Villanova without Duke Brennan in there lacked a little bit of size or size that they're comfortable with, so they played more of a matchup zone. Dan Hurley, I feel like when he sees his own, he's just like, all right, well, let's go have some fun. This is where we get to have fun. If you man us, we're still going to kill you. But you want to zone us, matchup zone us, whatever. That's where they feasted. So they'd call timeouts. He'd just draw something up, knowing that they're going to go into that matchup zone, and they'd just get something easy. So that was an awesome win for UConn. That's one of those games that you just kind of look at and you're like, well, those are the ones you just got to get through and just win it. And that's all you can do. So 15 straight wins for the Huskies. They are absolutely rolling 9-0 in the Big East, and big time win today, 75-67. One of these nasty games that you just got to figure out. And for them, I mentioned Alex Caravan, but solo ball really found it today. 24 points for him. Silas Demery made some big plays. I mentioned Brandon Mullins. He only played 18 minutes and had to sit out, but Terrace Reed had 4 assists, 11 rebounds, and 10 points. So he was getting it going. Like these guys, they just did what they were supposed to. Eric Riba, I thought he played some good minutes when he was in there. Like these guys just get it. They just know where to be, what to do. They make shots when they're needed, and all this different stuff. So it was very, very awesome to see them continue their absolute dominance. Auburn at Florida was another huge game, huge outcome of the day. Tigers kept Florida off of the offensive boards. That was kind of the story of this. They held Florida to, which this is going to sound crazy, they held Florida to only 17 offensive boards. They are a team that usually gets a whole lot more than that. They were able to get some, especially late in this one, off of free throws, different stuff. But early on, that was how they built their lead, and they were able to kind of sustain it. It was a whole weird situation where Florida, they didn't take a lead ever again after leading 3-2. They almost took a lead like 58-56 or something in that area where there was like a Thomas Howe, he was driving or something. Keyshawn Murphy swats it off the glass. They call a goaltend, so they go up for like a minute and a half, and then they go back down because it gets erased. Nonetheless, though, credit to Auburn. This game for Auburn was kind of the statement game. Keyshawn Hall helped give them a 15-point lead in the first half. 22 points out of the team's 43. And it was just, he was getting whatever he wanted. He had finished with 24, but it wasn't needed that he continued to do his thing because other guys stepped up big time in this one. Florida ends up shooting 59% from the free throw line. That was a big story of why they were able to find themselves in this hole, and they were in a terrible spot. Keyshawn Murphy, like I mentioned with the block, he had that stupid dunk at the end where Stephen Pearl was ticked, even in the midst of him being extremely, extremely excited because of how his guys were playing and stuff. So, great win, like I mentioned. Keyshawn Murphy, he played well. He had 16 points, 9 rebounds. Keyshawn Hall, 24, 7, and 4. Tahad hit some big shots there late. Had that big floater over Alex Condon that was clutch. They just figure out ways to win. They just figure it out. It's always like a different guy. It feels like that goes off. Keyshawn Hall's been pretty consistent, but like Kevin Overton will have games that he'll just kind of pop off. But first win in Gainesville since February 10th, 1996. So clutch win. Stephen Pearl signature win. And this one of the broadcasters had mentioned that, like, do you think this one feels like the official torch passing of Bruce Pearl to Stephen Pearl because of how big and monumental this win was for them? I tend to agree with that. This was a massive, massive win, 76-67 on the road in Gainesville in the O-Dome, a very, very tough place to play. Thomas Howe, he was really the only guy that got it going. He had 27 and 10, incredible stuff. Alex Condon had his one singular point there at the end of the game on a free throw, so that was bad. He was really, really bad all night. Chinyalu kind of came back to earth, still played some pretty good minutes, I thought, but the guards didn't really bring it, and Thomas Houck was really the only guy that I feel like they kind of, not that everybody does this, but like I feel like they might have gotten a little bit over their head a little bit because they were just rolling. They were 5-1 in the SEC. They had beaten some really good teams in that run. I think they started to get a little chesty, maybe a little confident, and then they kind of got stuck in the mouth with Auburn. This outcome, though, this game in general, shook up the SEC even more, though. At the top of the conference sits the Texas A&M Aggies with Bucky Ball, year one of his era in College Station. They sit at number 1 in the conference. Right behind them, tied for second, Kentucky, Arkansas, Florida. 3-way tie there. And then behind them, an absolute mess. It is absolutely chaotic. There's some sort of mix of like Alabama, Georgia, Missouri, Vanderbilt, Auburn, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Like, who knows? It is an absolute mess, but that makes it very fun. Like, none of these games like make any sense because you come into this one and you're like, oh, well, Auburn's not great. Florida's been on this crazy, crazy hot run. They kind of look like they're what we thought they were going to be going into the year. Then you get here and it's like, all right, well, Auburn goes and wins that game. So the conference is a mess, but it's very, very fun. It's one of those things that you love about college football. You don't know what's going to happen, and that's the situation we find ourselves in currently with the SEC. Georgetown beats the old Ed Cooley team, Providence, on the road in a game that Providence was camping out for. They obviously hate Ed Cooley. People were talking about during the game that now they're going to be sitting at 9-11. Georgetown would be if they lost this one, which they were down quite a bit, 21 to be exact. But they ended up storming back. This was a game that where they were kind of down for the count. They ended up winning 81-78 in an awesome, awesome comeback. KJ Lewis was a big reason for it. 26 points, and then he hits the night-night celly after one of the daggers there late. He was awesome. Iwuchukwu off the bench was awesome. Hey, he brought some really, really good stuff for them. He had 16 off the bench. But they just kind of figured it out. Like, I mean, they went and said, like, we are going to win this game. This is not going to be something where we kind of just get blown out and all this different stuff. Like, we're at least going to get back in this thing and see if we can figure out a way to win it there at the end. Malik Mack had 13. There were some big-time shots, big-time plays being made there towards the end. And they get the win over his former team, Ed Cooley, the Ed Cooley Bowl. They end up winning and get to where they are 10-10. And they get their second Big East win. So they're just getting started. Illinois at Purdue. 88-82 victory at Purdue in Mackey Arena without Kylan Boswell, their leader, their star, their all this stuff. I did not think they could do it without Kylan Boswell. They go in there and win it. So I've been shut up. I've been proven wrong, all this different stuff. Keaton Wagler is the story. Holy crap. Holy crap. 24 points at halftime, and he did not slow down. He finished with an efficient 46 points. Now, this team, the immediate thought for me is like, oh, yeah, so these guys, I think it was Jake Davis was the one that they were talking to after the game. These guys are incredibly poorly media trained. Jake Davis said, like, oh, yeah, that mother effer couldn't miss or something. And then Mirkovich said, if I didn't play and we had lost this game, I would KMS. I'm just not going to say the full thing, but they said that. They said that stuff. It's crazy. It is hilarious how poorly media trained they are, but doesn't matter if you're media trained or not. You go into Mackey Arena and win a big game. I'm not going to say anything. Big time win. Keaton Wagler, man, 46 points, 13 for 17, 9 for 11 from 3, 11 for 13 from the line, getting wherever he wanted. It was downhill. It was mid-range. It was threes. It was all this different stuff. He was spectacular. And I look and say, how is he only 261 in the country? That's a 24-second composite. Only recruited by Minnesota and Illinois. Brad Underwood, Nico Medved, and their staff are the only people that saw this talent. This dude, man. I mean, if you listen to the Purdue guys after the game, they're like, well, I don't know. He's hitting volleyball line threes. It's one of those things that this kid's just really, really special. So he was unstoppable, the definition of it. And the only counter to it was Braden Smith on the other side of things, getting it done. 27 points, 12 assists for him. Even through the injury where it looked like they were going to have to amputate his leg, and he comes back in, plays really well. He kind of figured it out and kept them in it really, really late. So, I mean, Braden Smith continued to do his thing. It's just nobody else could really step up and do a whole lot. TKR had 12. They slowed him down. I mean, Illinois' got crazy size, so that's one thing that kind of stands out. But the Ivisic brothers, I thought they played really well. I thought they did some good things. Stojakovic did some good things. Like, they would do things defensively with rebounding, with different stuff. Like, they just kind of all brought it. Outside of Wagler, who just did all the scoring. He had 46. And yeah, he was unbelievable. Like I mentioned, Braden Smith played good. Fletcher Warrior, he's been non-existent. It feels like it's like it's getting to the point that like it's basically he's got to score or he's not. He shouldn't be in the game. That's what it feels like at this point. Omer Meyer, I thought played well. But Oscar Clough, poor Oscar Clough. I talked about this with the college football playoff national championship. I am a white male who plays a lot of basketball. I get picked on. They kind of single out me and they're like, oh shoot, like got this man on an island. Let's call an ISO. They were calling ISOs on Oscar Clough, but they had 3 straight triples there at the end. 3 straight threes because of Oscar Clough. They would get him in some high ball screen, some middle ball screen or something, and they would have no idea, zero communication on how to answer it. Now, Purdue, Matt Painter, all of his teams, like, they've always been very, very efficient and, like, understanding of, like, where they are, smart about everything. Even in this game, they were smart at times. Like, there were some times where like, they'd switch on some off-ball screen or something, and Braden Smith be on a big, and then there'd be some type of action that would have somebody moving around, and Oscar Clough would be, hey, go over there, I got this man. Then they'd switch, and it'd be perfect. Then it was like, oh, these guys just get it. Over and over and over there at the end. Oscar Clough gets put into a high ball screen, and he kind of does like a soft hedge, kind of a drop type of thing. And then they'd end up having 2-on-1, they'd kick it, wide open 3. It was a few different guys there at the end, hitting big threes, but I just couldn't believe that Purdue was like that. I could not believe they were in that boat. So, I mean, that second loss at Mackey, it seems crazy that we're at this point because they just freaking they never lose there. But big time road win. I mean, doing it in Mackey, having a 46 ball in Mackey is just silly. Like that's something like you dream about. He does it. Very, very cool stuff to see from him. And I love the neon uniforms. I think this was the first time I remember them wearing the white ones. I don't know if these are new or if I'm just like, maybe I just haven't paid attention. But I've seen the gray ones, obviously, a ton. But the neon, the hammer down cancer, stomp out cancer, whatever it may be, cancer research uniforms, they're awesome. I absolutely love those. So those were cool at least. Even though they didn't result in a victory, I thought those were awesome uniforms. Now, they popped this up right after the Keaton Wagler and Kingston Fleming's back-to-back, 42 points, 46 points. They popped this up. Second duo with 40-plus points on the road versus top 25 team on the same day. The other duo was February 22nd, 1969. Pete Maravich for LSU and Rudy Tomjanovich. I don't remember how it's pronounced. But a legendary NBA coach. And then Pete Maravich, Pistol Pete. That's pretty good company to be in if you're these guys. So, I don't know where these draft boards are going to show Keaton Wagler, but I think he got his name out there big time today. He's a guy that had slowly figured it out recently, and then out of nowhere, Kylan Boswell's out. He said, I got it. I'll take this. And he figures it out, to say the least. So that was awesome. He was spectacular. From start to finish, and had these Purdue guys kind of like, I don't even know what to do at this point because he was unguardable. St. John's at Xavier, the Pitino Bowl. The Red Storm ended up winning 88-83 in Cincinnati, in an awesome comeback victory. Once again, there were many, many comebacks today. This was another one that you can add on to that pile. This is a brutal week for Xavier. After the buzzer beater in the middle of the week against Creighton, and then they blow the lead in this one. He almost beat his pops. Richard Pitino did not get it done. Now he's 1-4 against Dad. But a 16-point comeback by the Johnnies, led by Dylan Mitchell and B-Hop. Those two were kind of the ones that fueled that run. Dylan Darling was special though. He hit some big time shots. He is the guy that like they had brought over to be that true like point guard. He wasn't really playing like a point guard role today. He only had 3 assists, but he was hitting clutch shots there at the end. Best way to put it is the way that Rick Pitino put it. He said, balls as big as church bells. Yeah. He had a big 3 to go up to with about a minute left. That is exactly the best way to put it. Balls as big as church bells. But in the Pitino Bowl, young Pitino going for, I think, win 259. But, OG, Rick Pitino, Ricky P, Slick Rick, all this different stuff. gets his 900th win, sitting alone in 4th all time. Behind Coach K with 1,202, Jim Boeheim with 1,116, and Roy Williams with 903. And his immediate thought after the game, there is nothing about like reflecting on his career or anything. There was nothing about that. It was the only thing that you could say he reflected on is like, well, players get you these wins, so I'm very appreciative of all these players and different stuff. But the first thing on his mind was, they said, what's next for you? And he said, get to 1,000. He talked about how his family allows him to, they're absolutely wonderful to him. They allow him to be able to work with these guys and have all these guys. And this group, it feels cinematic that he was able to get it with them. And he'll probably move up into 3rd all time in front of Roy Williams, who's only 3 wins ahead of him. They'll probably get there pretty soon. But it feels like it just makes sense. Like, guys like Ruben Prey, like he's been around a little bit. He made a big play late. There's only 2 points where that tip in towards the end that ended up solidifying the win. Ian Jackson, like these guys that were like, Ian Jackson wasn't like used goods, but it was kind of like, all right, we'll see if we can figure it out. Same with a few of these different other guys. Like Zuby Ejiofor was awesome. Dylan Mitchell was awesome. B-Hop was awesome. All these guys, like they just like figured it out. This group just like solidifies what Pitino is as a coach, where it's like they have been written off time after time after time. They had dudes in Twitter Spaces saying to John Fanta that they are terrible and they are awful. They're terrible. They're all this different stuff, and they have John Fanta getting fired up, and he says, "You're an idiot." I agree. St. John's is not terrible. They've just had a rough stretch, but they're figuring it out at the right time, sitting at 8-1 in the Big East, and now they. I mean, if you look at where they're at, you're starting to feel pretty good. They obviously will have the 2 UConn games that they have yet to play, but man, if they can get one of those 2, then you're back in the same spot that we thought we'd be in the preseason, where they are the second best team in the conference. So they can keep rattling off wins here, and I'm excited to see it. But the Johnnies, man, big time win, and the guys get to go back to New York because Rick Pitino said before the game that if we lost this game, I'm leaving the guys in Cincinnati. They congrats to them. They get to go back home. Some of the other stuff that I don't have like a ton to talk about, but I just want to mention. Jeremy Fears, All-American stuff out of him. Once again, game after game, it's like, all right, this guy's just solidifying himself to be a first-team All-American. 17 points, 17 assists versus Maryland today. He was plus 43 in 25 minutes in a 91-48 victory. So big shout out to Jeremy Fears. Bellarmine lost to North Florida today, 117-114. Most points ever scored in an ASUN conference game. That's some fun stuff right there. That's points galore. That's some good stuff. Missouri hits a buzzer beater in overtime, 88-87. That was big time stuff because they are on bubble watch. They're a team that truthfully, I have no idea. If I had to predict where they would end up right now, I have no idea. They have the win in Kentucky that seems like it might be aging a little bit well. Not completely sure about that, but nonetheless, getting to today's win over Oklahoma was crucial in that, and that was big time. Yeah, they only hit 6 threes in the game, 6 for 21 from 3, and they hit the big one there at the end. So that was clutch, big time stuff there. SMU's Jerron Pierre dunks on his own teammate in the dagger over Florida State. They were up, I want to say 79-77 maybe at that point, and they go up 81-77 with that dunk. But he dunks on his own teammate. It was hilarious. But they get out of there with a win, 83-80. This is Andy Enfield's 300th career win. He won games at Florida Gulf Coast. He won games at USC, and now is likely to take his third program to an NCAA tournament. That's some good stuff. Andy Enfield is just a winner, and he just figures it out, ways to win. Arkansas beats LSU, led by Darius Acuff, one of the many freshmen that I will mention today. He had 31-6. He's 9 for 21 from 3 in his last 3 games. He had a stretch in this one. He had block, went out of bounds, block, got it. He got his own rebound off that block, went 94 feet, weaving through traffic, did all this good stuff to be able to win that one. Gonzaga, they win a game 68-66, still with one loss, 21-1, without their 2 best players, Braden Huff and Graham E.K., both missing in this one. Jalen Worley stepped up big time. Davis Fogel, I thought, was spectacular. He was really good. Freshman. Another freshman adding on to the entire day. Tyon Grant Foster was really good. All these guys stepped up in a big-time win over the Dons from San Francisco. BYU and Utah. This is kind of going to lead me into the freshmen. Let me make sure. Okay, Arizona, they rolled. They beat West Virginia. They beat them 88-53. This game was never close. They took over. Del Orso had a good game. That was kind of my takeaway. I like to see Del Orso play a good game. He had 12. And then Braden Burries, which you'll never guess it, freshman. He had 22 today as well. So a big win. And now they take over in all the analytics as the number one team, because that's been the one thing that's kind of held them back from being listed as like, oh, that's the scariest team that we've ever seen, because they were always like second or third in analytics. But now they take over, which has been Michigan. A few other teams have been towards the top, but they took over that. Iowa State, they Milan Momcilovic had 29. They were leading comfortably for a lot of this game, and then they kind of allowed a little bit of comeback to make it a little bit closer than what it was. But they were playing pretty well overall. But their trio, 29 points from Momcilovic, 20 from Joshua Jefferson, 13 from Tamin Lipsey, and then Killian Torrey had 10. So if those four guys can do that, you're gonna have a lot of easy wins out there. And like I said, they still kind of cruised to this victory. They let up the lead there towards the end, but good stuff nonetheless. I mentioned Virginia. Vanderbilt won, got back on track. Tyler Tanner, a guy that hasn't necessarily played great on the road, has 24 points on the road today in a 88-56 victory in Starkville. That was some good stuff for number 15 Vanderbilt. They needed that after losing 2 in a row. Clemson beat Georgia Tech 77-63. Another good one for them. Louisville, they get Michael Brown back. They went 85-71. A game that I thought Virginia Tech played pretty well in overall, and they were smacking threes and everything. So that was good stuff. Now I want to talk about these freshmen. I mentioned Michael Brown just a second ago. BYU and Utah, thank you for wearing the uniforms like you always do. The blue and the red is awesome. Thank you very much for that. I wanted to mention that before I get into these freshmen. AJ DeBanza sets new career high, 43 points. Passes Danny Ainge for the freshman record in BYU history. I already mentioned Keaton Wagler, 46 points. Kingsley Fleming's 42 points. AJ Bonsa, 43 points per ESPN research. This is from Jeff Borzello. This is the first day in at least the last 20 seasons in which multiple D1 freshmen have scored 40 points in a game, and there's been 3 of them, a truly generational class. That is saying the absolute least. This class is generational. This might be the best freshman class we've ever seen in my entire life, or maybe ever. This is definitely the best that we've seen in my lifetime that I can remember out of all of my memory. Last year's was really good, and it's crazy to think that like Cooper Flagg was supposed to be in this class. That adds to how insane this is. And if you look across the country, like there's still some really good freshmen that make big time impacts that you don't hear about too much, like Tunde Yusufu. That guy does some good things. He makes some mistakes and stuff. He made some mistakes tonight against TCU, but he's still figuring it out. But he's gonna be a good player nonetheless. Like this freshman class is absolutely silly. I mentioned those guys. There are those guys: Wagler 46, DeBonta 43, Fleming's 42. Outside of them, Cam Boozer had 32 on Wake Forest today. Michael Brown had 20 in his first game back from injury. Caleb Wilson had 20. Nathan Minton had 29. And the thing about all of that is I didn't even mention the one that a lot of people think is the best. Darren Peterson, who is still hurt, has missed 10 games, still out. Didn't even mention him, and all these other guys are doing their thing. It's unbelievable that we're at this point where all these freshmen are the best. And if you're new to the channel, I'm a Kentucky fan, so it hurts to see that like Kentucky doesn't have these guys. That's brutal to see. But Darius Acuff, he's awesome. Malik Thomas has done some good things for them. I'm trying to think if I've even mentioned enough freshmen. The freshman class is just ridiculous. It is unbelievable. It's literally every time you turn on a game, it's crazy. They are just balling out. They do everything that they're needed to do. Amari Allen, I mentioned him being out for Alabama. He's one of their best players. He's been really good as of late. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And I know some of these like Europeans that came over, they're like listed as freshmen. Some of them that are actually like freshman age, that's very impressive to me. But some of them are older and they're like 22 and they're listed as a freshman. And it's all just kind of whack. But these truly freshman guys that were born, grew up in America, they all played against each other. AJ DeBonta, I mentioned that. in his post game. His reaction to hearing Keaton Wagler scored 46 at Purdue was awesome because they said like, oh yeah, Keaton Wagler scored 46 at Purdue, and he was like, huh? That Mackey is crazy. Then he talked about watching Kingston Flemings and saying like, man, this is really cool. All these freshmen I played against in the EYBL, all this different stuff. Like, it's an honor to be a part of this class. This class is unbelievable. They are absolutely unbelievable. Game after game, time after time, they keep doing it. Now, I mentioned Cam Boozer, and then Michael Brown. That duo right there, they play Monday night. One of the freshmen that I didn't even mention, Koa Pete. I did mention his teammate Braden Burry is both freshmen. They play the guy that scored 43 tonight in AJ DeBonsa on Monday. Monday's hoops are awesome. I can't wait for those games. I think that's it for this one. I've talked enough about these games, and I feel like I've highlighted who I need to highlight and talked about all these different guys. But, yeah, BYU, that game was close until it wasn't, and they ended up pulling away. I'm trying to make sure I kind of hit on all these. Wake Forest, they are a team that doesn't completely make sense to me. They fought with Duke for a long time. Then Duke pulled away. But Wake Forest, it feels like it's in every single game. But then you look at the record, they're 11-9, 2-5 in ACC play. I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. But a lot of these teams, though, like these are like season-defining wins that I think are very, very key. Like Tennessee, this win got them back on track. Kansas now sitting at 8-2. If you look at Melvin Council, this is a massive, massive win. He played really well. Villanova, I know it's a loss, but like going to Stores and Hartford, all that, like going and faring well in that one is very, very big. Illinois, this one lifts them to that next tier of national championship contender. Like they can go win a national championship. This is crazy. I just noticed this. Keaton Wagler doesn't even have his picture. They didn't even got this brother's picture. Come on, ESPN. That's disrespectful. I just realized that. But they go out there without Kylan Boswell and go win at Mackey against a fully healthy Purdue team. Crazy. Crazy, crazy. That's a program season-defining win. Texas Tech, they go get that season-defining win. Nebraska, they keep winning. There's all these different things like North Carolina. This one changes their trajectory of the season if they would have had a loss here. Like, these games are so, so important that these teams won today. The freshmen were dominant. These games were extremely important, and a lot of these teams won games that they had to go and win. Big time stuff. What an awesome day. So go enjoy those games Monday. Go enjoy the games throughout the week. I don't know when I'll be back. With this snowstorm, I might just be back every single night for the rest of eternity, according to how it looks here in Kentucky, because it's coming down. But everyone stay safe. Everyone stay warm. I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. All the good stuff. I appreciate it. Leave some comments on your thoughts on today. If you think I'm wrong on some stuff, please let me know. I love to conversate, talk about all these different things. If you want to talk about the controversial topic of the world, the man of the hour, Charles Bediako, we can talk about that as well in the comments. Just leave a comment below. If you're listening on YouTube, go leave comments. It's always fun to talk to you guys. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I appreciate that as well. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe. Go follow, whatever it may be. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.